It's like putting a puzzle together with bits and pieces, and perhaps a bit of glue and tape, because I don't understand it well. Now an angel came to me, and he had 2 testes in the palm of his hand, and he said to me, if you carry these, they will carry you. In line with this, I am thinking about the book of Job, and how strange it is that in the setting of Job's misery and pre-recovery that Yahweh set out and discussed seemingly endlessly about the Leviathan. After this, Job was restored. Many spiritual people conceive of themselves as a soul or something similar, or, in practice, a thinking brain, and disregard the human sexuality to the organic, for the mere sake of reproduction. But sexuality is spiritual. Now the king cannot be a king without touching his private parts, and of course the exact same for the queen, but I am talking about the sons of God who must rule. And by touching I am not talking physically, I am talking about holding the sacredness of being, which contains the sexuality in a container, that is respectively the psychological feeling and radiance of masculinity and femininity. Now the Leviathan speaks, I think, of the letter or process of none. In practice, we must sanctify our feeling of sexuality and its glory. The normal mind of the physical brain keeps the opinions of others inside it, and these copies become towers, fences, or spikes inside our deep mind, and whenever we think, our thoughts bounce against these, or we divert away from them, so that there are chambers in our mind which we avoid. If your sexuality is stolen, there is probably a painful copy of some thought conglomerate which, like a wall or spike, tower over that part of your mind. That is, if we can borrow, perhaps loosely, from Ecclesiastes, the broken pitcher at the fountain. But we can restore this by creating an image or idea of the new, holding our masculinity or femininity, or its proper glorious picture, inside, something like pool of sapphire water. And the key here, in stillness of thought, is to let no other thought inside. There should be no one on the other end, no one. This is how we repair the pitcher at the fountain, which is also the process of the nun. The only presence, as it were, that is allowed is the affirmation of the Father God, which is affirming love. Because the brain or the deep psychology of the human will not grow without affirmation of love, it just won't. And we want to expand cosmically, into great spaces and places in the dimensions. I think that the filling up of the nun does not require absolute chastity, as is mentioned by many faiths, and even modern-day aspirants of success, rather it is sanctity and separation. Notwithstanding, it is true that the sexuality can have a 2, or a 4, and this sharing create a platform for others to devour you. But to have absolute chastity may cause us to become so preoccupied that the chastity becomes a god or idol in itself, and it will defeat you. Now Samson created a 2 and a 4 and shared his platform, and others devoured him. His whole life seemed to revolve about telling others people things, telling the secret of his power, telling a riddle of the lion, and again, taking honey from the carcass and giving some to his parents, and not telling them where he got it. Why did he not tell them, and why mention that point in the Bible? And all this happens at Timnah, a place. But here I take some liberty and say that Timnah speaks of separating something from something. It is the place where we must keep our secrets, or separate our sacredness from the outside world and the inside copies of the world. Therein is power. Because sharing breaks a boundary. And when we break the boundary, there is a power in our system, the Gimel, which will anchor us to chaos into the natural feeding plane of the world. Perhaps when we contain the lion of sexuality, it will give us honey, and we can eat the honey, and give it to our parents, which is our brain. So the brain must touch the sexuality, and the sexuality must touch the mind of the brain. And when sacredness of sanctity of the holding of the sexuality touches our mind, by mere awareness rather than forced chastity, our hair grows again, and the nun is up on the pole, and we may find a way out of trouble.